Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells it all regarding family court, other court issues, as well as CPS. I am your host, Maryann Petri. You can find me, my books, and blogs on dismantlingfamilycourtcorruption.com, as well as YouTube. Please like and subscribe. I've got a brand new guest. I have Clarissa Williams on, as well as her Aunt Carolyn. They reside in Greenville, South Carolina. She and her daughter are victims of South Carolina's Department of Social Services, also known as DSS, as well as victims of South Carolina's judicial system. The system failed them and let them down when it's their job to serve, protect, and have the best interest of the children and families at heart. On December 14th, 2021, Greenville, South Carolina County kidnapped her then 13-year-old daughter from school and illegally placed her into foster care and did not go the route of kinship care. I welcome you, Clarissa and Aunt Carolyn, to the podcast. Where are you at now and what happened from there?
Well, DSS suddenly came into me and my daughter's lives back in 2021. And the nightmare started. I was contacted by DSS, an investigator, and she said that she wanted to meet with me and said that someone had actually called DSS and said that I was saying that my daughter had parasites and that they needed to speak with me about it. So she unexpectedly called me. I agreed to meet her the same day she called. She and I met at a local restaurant, Waffle House, and she and I sat down and talked about the situation. And she was asking me a lot of questions about my daughter's health. And I explained to her, she asked me if my daughter had ever had parasites, and I told her she did. And so it seems like the entire case is surrounded around parasites. And
Mhm.
DSS saying that she did not have parasites. So I told her she did. She was treated and diagnosed with parasites. I
Mhm.
told her who the physician was, that it was a physician in South Carolina. And I told her I had the medical visit summary. And she asked me a lot of personal questions about me and my daughter, how long she had been sick, and she asked me if she could actually meet with my daughter later that day after she and I had finished up our interview. And I said, sure, you can. Transparency with me, sure. So I picked her up and I didn't tell my daughter where we were going, and we met her at a Taco Bell in Greenville, and she interviewed my daughter extensively. And I can remember some of the questions she asked her. She asked her if she was safe at home. Has
Mhm.
she been sick? My daughter told her yes. She said, can you please describe your symptoms? I remember my daughter told her some of her symptoms. She was having severe abdominal pain. She would itch like something was biting us. We would have these lesions all on our skin. My daughter had blood in her stool. She was vomiting. She was nauseous. She had insomnia. She was having nosebleeds. She had a big nodule on the side of her. Both of us did, running down by her heart. Her skin got very, 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 very dark.
Mhm.
And we were sick. Both of us had the same symptoms. We were both seeing the same specialist at this particular time. So my daughter explained some of those symptoms to her and told her that she was safe at home with me, and told her how long she had been sick. And the investigator put this inside of her case dictation notes. So that was on November the 3rd, 2021. I never heard back from DSS, never. And I did sign a school authorization form and a medical release form on November the 3rd. I never heard back from them. The next time DSS entered my life was on December the 14th, 2021, when an investigator called me and told me she wanted to meet with me. She and I met at a restaurant, and I had
Wow.
pulled in the parking lot. So when I pulled in the parking lot, I saw a police car pull up, and I was like, "Wow, police car pulling up here."
Oh,
And then 5 minutes later, I saw this big old pickup truck pull up, and I saw this guy get out, had on a long badge, a cop badge, and I saw the investigator get out, the lady that me and my daughter met with on November the 3rd, and she came over to me with 3 or 4 sheets of paper and said, "We took custody of your daughter. Be in family court tomorrow." Handed me a sheet of paper and walked off.
oh no. The trauma your daughter must have gone through.
I almost had a nervous breakdown, a stroke, and a heart attack at the same time because
Right.
I knew that I had not done anything to hurt my daughter.
Oh, this is terrible.
And that was on December the 14th. So I got an attorney at the last moment. I had no idea why I was going to court the next day. I didn't even know what family court was.
Oh,
So this attorney agreed to represent me. We went in there the next day for a probable cause hearing in front of a Judge Rochelle Connix. She's involved in a lot of this corruption. And when I went in there, first of all, I was not served the summons and the hearing notice. And it's in the transcript where DSS managing attorney saying, well, they admitted they didn't even serve me, which is denial of my due process. And so I didn't even know I was there.
right, because she just told you show up in family court.
The next day at 2 o'clock.
Right. So she didn't hand
And
you any paperwork to,
well, she handed me a 4-sheet, but it didn't say why I was going there. It just says due to abuse and neglect, but I knew I had not heard of her and my daughter. So I was so confused. I had no idea what was going on or why they would take my child from me.
or kidnap.
Yes, yes. So me and my aunt went in there the next day. This is my aunt. My daughter has a very close bond with her. She's actually been pretty much a caregiver for DSS. She had 2 children that have been placed with her in the past.
Mhm.
So my aunt wanted custody of my daughter. So we went in there the next day. And we had the hearing. DSS was not truthful. That ex parte petition that DSS filed with the courts, they changed the dates on it. They got that report from a physician on October 27th. But they changed the date on the ex parte petition to say they got it on December the 3rd. And they put that in the affidavit. That's not true. That's a falsified document that they presented to the courts.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
upon doing some research, I figured that out. They changed doctor statements. They made a lot of untruthful statements by saying I refused to cooperate. I refused to give them relatives information for my daughter to be placed with. And when I started doing some research and became familiar with some of the laws, that's when I knew I had been wronged. And looking at it's a document that's called Affidavit of Reasonable Efforts. That's a very serious document, and DSS put in there, DSS had no knowledge of the family prior to the removal of the minor child, and that no services were offered to the family. You have to offer a family services and try to work with them and reunify the family if possible.
But they never do.
They don't, and they lied. That was
Right.
a lie, and they put it in the affidavit. That's a signed affidavit. And
I'm sorry, affidavit of reasonable
efforts,
efforts.
showing
And
the
they
efforts
don't,
that they made to prevent removing my daughter. So they didn't make any efforts at all. But then they turned back around and put in a complaint in the affidavit that I refused to cooperate and I refused to give them relatives information to place my daughter with. But in the affidavit, they said DSS had no knowledge of the family and no services were offered. So if you go with that, that tells you no investigation could have been done. That was impossible for me to refuse to cooperate because
Mhm.
they said they had no knowledge of me. So they're contradicting themselves.
Uh-huh.
And me and the investigator, I emailed her because she wanted to come out to my residence and do a home study. So I never heard back from her. So I emailed her and asked her when would she like to come out. But she told the court she had no knowledge of me and that she had never spoken with me. And she failed to discuss or tell the courts that she had an interview with me and my daughter. That is not in any type of legal document throughout this entire case. When my daughter told her that she was safe at home, where I told her my daughter did have parasites, and my daughter told her, explained all her symptoms, and she asked her how she disciplined at home. I'll never forget it. My daughter was like, she takes my electronics, she takes my phone, and she was like, is there anything you need? She was like, no, I have everything I need at home. So I don't understand why they said my daughter's life, health, and safety was in danger while she was in my custody.
So there must be some money involved here. What happened with this DSS attorney or director?
Michael Leach, when this first happened, a friend of mine sent him a certified letter telling him what his employees had done and how they kidnapped my daughter, how they committed perjury, falsified documents, forged them. They forged some of those documents. And he did not do an investigation. He did not look into anything. And I guess about a month and a half ago, I was kind of frustrated. I just sat there because I could not believe that someone would just come into my life and just strip my daughter away from me and make false allegations against me. And I sent him a personal email telling him that his employees kidnapped my daughter. And the very next day, he resigned as a director for the state of South Carolina Department of Social Services the very next day.
And you sent him this email in 2024.
October, I sure did.
And that was what was November, you said? We were
I
talking
sent one
earlier.
in October of 2024.
Okay. Wow. And then he just turns around the next day. Isn't that funny how that works?
It really is.
So they're covering up something.
Yes, they are. And the judges are. Now, this is really strange. Something I want to bring to your attention because um, I had a lot of time to do a lot of research and a lot of investigating and researching these laws. And like I said, the document that's called the Affidavit of Reasonable Efforts,
Hmm.
in every court order that I have that's signed by those judges, every last one of those judges said DSS made every reasonable effort to prevent removal of the minor child. Those judges gave false statements and presented false court orders. A judge, all three of them that's involved in this case said that. And I have a video showing that, and you can see it in every last one of those court orders where those judges lie. They actually are under oath and they lie.
You want to name them?
Yeah, absolutely. The first one is Judge Tarita Dunbar. She has a lot of complaints, lots of them.
Hmm.
Judge Catherine Tiffany. And the most corrupt one is Judge Rochelle Connie. She's even been sued before.
Huh. Doesn't surprise me. Ah,
Now, Judge Rochelle Connors, this is the one that I had my trial in front of, a 3-day trial. And my daughter's guardian ad litem. Now, my daughter was placed illegally in the state of Georgia with her father. Her father has 2 felony convictions. I informed the courts of this, and they still placed her with him in Georgia. He also was on probation, and he had a probation violation. And the courts knew of this, and they still tried to cover this up and tried to get my daughter out of the state of South Carolina and place her in Georgia. Now, Georgia has to agree to the placement. South Carolina don't follow laws in this state, no checks and balances, and they
mhm.
placed her illegally. So my daughter did not have a case manager following her, and she had missed so many days of school. Her grades were falling. He wasn't supervising her properly. She was being left in the home 17, 18 hours a day. He was
Ah,
traveling back and forth, and they knew this between New York and Atlanta. And this is the weirdest part, Maryann. In their complaint and affidavit, DSS put in their quote, "The father has failed to take responsibility for the welfare and safety of the minor child, yet the court still placed her with him, and DSS recommended that she stay with him. But her guardian ad litems, Jackie and Jerry Land, that's a husband and wife couple who harassed you, and harassed us at visitation. They actually initially recommended my daughter be placed with her father. But once I started going on social media, because I wanted people to know that I was wrong and how corrupt the system was,
mhm.
they later changed their mind and recommended that she be removed from her father because he was neglecting her.
They both did. They recanted.
Yeah, they changed their mind and said and asked Judge Rochelle Connors to remove my daughter from this man. She refused to do so. Since then, my daughter has been choked by her father.
Mhm.
He left her at a hotel by herself in Gwinnett County, Georgia, relocated to New York. They got evicted. They were living out of a car, living at hotels. She was washing her clothes by hand. She was calling me for money for food. And when I would call Georgia DSS, I couldn't get any answers, and I'm sure that had a lot to do with South Carolina. And I have not lost my parental rights, nor have I heard of harm this child. Taking a sick child to the doctor is not illegal.
Don't know how many times.
Okay, well, they're saying that I allegedly took her to the doctor 15 times in 2.5 years, nearly 3 years. Now, my daughter was so sick. Like I said, both of us got sick. Now, let me tell you this, that we eventually found out the reason for our ongoing sickness,
Mhm.
because I had no quality of life, was mold was found inside of the HVAC system and in our air ducts, and lead was in our water, and the water pipes were corroded. So upon getting the water tested, the state of Georgia told me If those water pipes are corroded, anything in that ground, any type of microbes, microorganisms, anything in that ground, parasites or anything, can come through those pipes and cause a health hazard for us. And I'm sure it did, because we couldn't get any answers from any doctors telling us why we had gotten sick.
Till you moved.
Hmm?
You didn't get better until you moved.
Oh, yeah. Now, we started to get better once we moved out of there. But we still not completely well, because we lived with that mold for like 5 or 6 years. It was, and here's the most weirdest part. My primary care doctor did some tests. It was found in my mouth. Mold was growing in my mouth, my sputum, on my skin, and in my hair. And my skin got black.
Mm.
Yeah.
So it was a nightmare. It was, I really thought I had some type of cancer,
Right.
some type of
Right.
blood disease. And you would have thought that those doctors would have said the mother and the daughter wasn't sick until they moved into that apartment. They got the same symptoms. They see the same specialist. But they didn't put that together. And this is the craziest part, the doctor that filed that fraudulent abuse and neglect report against me, I don't even know that doctor. He doesn't know me and my daughter. And when he filed it, he works at Medical University of South Carolina, MUSC, by the name of a Dr. John Melville. He filed that report with DSS and put it on a progress note report and put an encounter date of October the 27th, 2021. He's never had an encounter with my daughter. He broke into her medical records, which is a HIPAA violation. I don't know him. I didn't give him consent to do that. And he can only do that with a court order or warrant.
Now, is this guy a pediatrician, or is he an ER doctor?
He
Or
is a
family?
child abuse specialist. But I don't know where he came from. Because he certainly is, my daughter's not his patient and never has been.
Now that's, like, in the hospital I worked at, we had a SA abuse nurse. So whenever we had a case come through, we would page her and she would come in. But you weren't around to, to see that done,
No,
right?
I don't even know that man. I have no idea where that man came from. And what he did was he did admit, he said, I've never spoken with the mother or the child. Well, he called her his patient, but my daughter's not his patient. And he said he looked at other doctor notes, is what he did. He fabricated things and he left out things, because he has no knowledge of my daughter's history.
So, and he admitted not to even talking to either of you.
He sure did. He admitted that.
Oh, he can't go off of another doctor's notes. What if those are wrong? You know
And,
what I
and
mean?
absolutely. And he made a lot of untruthful statements, and he said mothers' behavior seeking health care is a danger to this child. A mother seeking health care for a sick child who's been exposed to mold, lead, and corroded water pipes. Who wouldn't be sick?
I'm so sorry. Ah, boy, they made a big mess out of this one.
And another thing, the transcript, well, me and my aunt talked about this. When the second attorney I had, the first attorney, is something going on here. She refused to return my phone calls. She refused to answer my emails. She would not call me back. So I knew something just wasn't right, because in the beginning she was like, okay, she did an awesome job at that probable cause hearing. And she really embarrassed DSS, and she called them in all kinds of lies, which is in the transcript. And she was awesome. She just would not communicate with me anymore. So I was like, and when she sent me a final bill, she was like, fees as communication to child's father. So she never told me she was interacting with his attorney. So then she just fell off. So I said, I'm gonna get me a new attorney. Got another attorney. Gave him a copy of the medical visit summary showing my daughter did have parasites, and she was diagnosed and treated with $13,000 worth of medication. Nobody's going to pay $13,000 for some type of medication if they don't believe that child had parasites.
Right.
And they paid for it. And after they paid for it, and I talked to him, I never forget Attorney Dustin Davis in Greenville, South Carolina, when I kept saying, something isn't right about these dates or these documents. This was before I educated myself on the law.
Mhm.
And I'll never forget that attorney told me, stop worrying about those dates. This is what DSS does, and nobody's gonna stop them. And that was just mind blowing. In the back of my mind, I was like, we'll see about that.
Mhm.
They're not above the law over there. So he knew. And eventually he kept trying to force me, he kept telling me my daughter was not sick. And they found a very rare fungal infection that my daughter had that I had never really heard about. And most doctors haven't because it's rare, but it can be fatal. It's called Wengiella dermatitis. So he was like, she does not have a fungal infection. And I'm like, well, you need to look at the medical visit summary from Prisma. And with that being said, he kept trying to force me to believe that my daughter was not sick. So he filed a motion to withdraw off the case. Then I got appointed a public defender. She eventually filed a motion to withdraw off the case. Then they illegally appointed me a guardian ad litem by trying to say I was crazy once I went on social media.
Oh,
My guardian ad litem asked to be removed from the case, and the judge, Rochelle Connors, allowed him to be removed from the case. Everybody just started to step down off this case because I wasn't letting go. And then the director stepped down in October. So they're trying to detach themselves.
mm-hmm.
There's no transcript. So that ex parte hearing that allegedly took place, there's no transcript. I tried to get it. There's no names on that court order. It doesn't say, usually when you go to court, they'll give you all the names of the parties who was present at the hearing. There's no names on that document. There's no transcript. Can't find it. South Carolina Judicial Branch confirmed that there is no transcript. And a prominent attorney in Greenville, South Carolina, told me when I was calling around talking, I'll never forget, he said, we don't really have hearings. We just get the judge to sign the order. So these attorneys are going in front of these judges without any evidence of abuse and neglect. And those judges are signing those documents, kidnapping children. You got to present evidence, and you got to have clear and concise evidence that abuse and neglect existed.
Mm-hmm.
These are nothing but mere allegations, and they're taking these children from these parents, and they're not trying to reunify them with their parents. Because once you do what they ask you to do, you just get your children back. But I knew I had done nothing wrong to hurt my daughter. And my daughter told DSS at that interview that she was safe at home, that I had not hurt or harmed her, and that she was sick. But they concealed that and never, ever told the courts about the interview. And somebody accidentally gave me those case dictation notes. I think it was accidental, or one of those attorneys had kind of felt some type of remorse and let them fall into my lap.
Well, that's a gift from God.
It really is. And at the pretrial conference, when they said I was crazy, because I supposed to had a trial on October the 17, 2022. I was supposed to went to trial. Well, two or 3 days before trial, they go in there and have a big alleged pre-trial conference saying I'm crazy and I need to be appointed a guardian ad litem. Ain't no transcript for that. I tried to get it. Then they said they lost. I sent them almost $700, Maryann.
Oh,
First, they asked me to
no.
drop it off at the clerk of the court's window. I did. I tried to do that. They said, we don't accept payment here for that. So then I called the because her name is listed as a court reporter.
Who is it?
Tracy McBride. She's a court reporter for Judge Rochelle Connors. And her name is listed. So when they told me to reach out to the court reporter, she said that Judge Rochelle Connors didn't go on the record, but your name is listed as recording this alleged hearing that I didn't attend because I didn't know anything about it. So I don't believe it happened because there's no transcript. They're not transcribing these hearings, and that's how you win your appeals. Because if you don't have a transcript, you can't appeal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So this is a tactic that they're using over there. Then they made it appear that they lost the money. $700. I had to put a stop payment, pay $35, reissue payment again for those transcripts. Then another court reporter for another hearing with another judge said the same thing. I sent her the money. She said she didn't get it. I had to resend it. Then I resent it certified. And this is the crazy part. So Judge Rochelle Connors, I sent her an email asking her if she presided over the pretrial conference. She didn't respond to my email. And then I sent her another one asking her again if she presided over that pretrial. If you presided over that pretrial conference, and if you're busy and you have a secretary, it seems like she would have just said, please reach back out to Ms. Williams and let her know that we did preside over that pretrial conference so we can go ahead and close this. But she didn't. She ignored both of those emails because I knew they didn't have it. And she's involved in this.
So with the second transcript, did Tracy McBrien do that one as well?
She eventually did get me, because it was 3 of them that I had paid for at first. But one of them I decided not to get because I needed that money. It was close to Christmas time. But eventually she did send that to. Now, this is what they do over there. After my trial ended, the attorney that I hired, Jay Elliott, wanted to email me the transcripts because I wanted to file an appeal. So he attempted to email me those transcripts in a Word document. At that particular moment, I didn't trust him either. Because anybody can change a Word document. He told me he couldn't file an appeal until he read those transcripts. But you were in that courtroom, you were my attorney. So even whether you read them or not, you knew the truth. So I wasn't going to accept those transcripts that was in a Word document. So Tracy McBride, the court reporter, kept trying to send the ones that she did have in a Word document. But when I filled the form out for South Carolina Judicial Branch, it said they will be sent in a PDF form. PDF forms, documents, you can't change them, you can't alter them. So she didn't want to send them in a PDF, she wanted to send them in a Word. So I told her, no, you need to send me those transcripts in a PDF document. So I went through I can't even tell you what I went through to get my hands on those transcripts. The ones that I did get, like I said, they don't have the one for the hearing when they removed her, and they don't have the one for that alleged pretrial conference.
Did they reimburse you any monies for the transcripts they didn't provide?
No, they did. Well, they provided all of them.
Okay.
Like I said, because I did get the money to them, but one of them I didn't get. But I just went through a nightmare where they said they lost it, they didn't get it. And then one of them turned back around and said, she made a mistake, it's gonna be more money. It was just one thing, and these people went to drastic remedies to try to stop me from getting to the appeals court, but I filed my appeal myself. Because I didn't trust any of those attorneys, they're crooked.
Right.
I got all the way to the Supreme Court.
Oh, that's excellent.
By myself.
Oh, that's excellent. I'm proud of you because a lot of people, as a pro se, some of them, can do it. Some of them can't.
Correct. I did it. Now they refused to hear the case, but I had enough information and evidence in there for them to see that it's a corrupt system, very corrupt system with DSS and family court judges.
That's why you feel like the South Carolina judicial system failed.
You know what I'm saying? Well, that's me and my aunt have been talking about this earlier, and that's one reason why I feel like the entire judicial system failed me and let me down, because the Supreme Court, their job is to make sure everyone in this state follows the law. And when I submitted my writ of cert over there to the Supreme Court, I even put in there that Judge Rochelle Connors was informed by my daughter's guardian ad litem that her father was not supervising her, was not taking care of her, and was neglecting her, and they wanted her to be removed from him. And the Supreme Court did absolutely nothing. And they knew that Judge Tarita Dunbar, when she issued that order, that ex parte order giving DSS custody, removed my daughter, they knew that DSS had falsified those dates and changed those dates, because I put it in there, and South Carolina Supreme Court let DSS off the hook, let them get away with it, and did not hold those judges accountable. The Supreme Court of South Carolina, they're involved in this too.
None of it should have gone forward because their time limits up.
You're right there.
Your 45.
Now, the 45-day, my aunt really she keeps stressing this. In the state of South Carolina, they have 45 days to do an investigation. If you count 45 days from October the 27th, when that Dr. John Melville submitted that frivolous, falsified abuse and neglect report to DSS, 45 days is December the 11th. At December the 11th, after that, the case was dead. It's supposed to have been closed with a case finding. Well, they filed the ex parte petition with the courts on December the 13th, 2 days later, after their deadline date expired, and they did not have an extension. This is really crazy, because I even reached out to my state senator, Tim Scott's office, and he didn't like it one bit. They were really concerned and kind of very not happy about what had happened. And they said they would make some phone calls and have someone reach out to me. And they did. A lady that works in constituent services by the name of Pamela Bryant called me, and me and her talked, and she asked me to give her evidence showing that DSS filed these documents after the 45 days and they changed dates. And she wanted proof that me and that investigator had emailed each other, because the investigator said she had no knowledge of the family prior to they took her. Which tells you that you couldn't have done investigation if you didn't know us. And I sent her the information and evidence, and she got back with me. And when she called me, pretty much what she admitted to it and said, investigators make mistakes, Miss Williams.
Ah,
Investigators make mistakes, but you didn't give me my child back when you admitted to me that you made a mistake. And
that's a poor excuse.
it is. And I have the email where I sent it to her. And Tim Scott, my senator, knew about this. He was a nice guy. He really was. At least he did try to do something. He pretty much said he was on the federal level, but he was trying to get somebody involved on the state level. And when they responded back to my email, I did feel his sincerity. I really did.
Uh-huh. You know, I know this is like a jurisdiction from, the either federal to state. Then you've got, Georgia involved, and you're in South Carolina.
Monitoring.
And pretty much,
Mm-hmm.
my daughter, they closed the case intentionally, and they found me guilty of physical abuse. Judge Rochelle Connors did, of physical abuse. Pretty much DSS said that the entire case was based on something called proxy by
Munchausen by proxy.
pretty much, but it's parasitosa. Trying to say I'm crazy that I'm imagining these parasites after their own witness, who is my daughter's physician, her ophthalmologist, took the witness stand and stated that my daughter was diagnosed and treated by dermatology for having parasites, and that they referred her over to him because they were in her eyes. But my eyes used to bleed. Something was in my eyes, cutting my eyes, and they would just bleed. And I kept going to the emergency room saying something is bleeding. My eyes are bleeding. And they had no answers for us. So I knew it was something very rare and unusual that we had. And pretty much that's how we got to the all these weird infections.
Mhm.
And ain't no telling what all we had, Maryann, with those water pipes being corroded. And that lead up in that water. Really is no telling. We have bacterial, every time you turn around, we have bacterial infections, fungal infections, urinary tract infections, ear infections, with just no answers. And I knew there was no reason for my daughter, a 10, 11-year-old child, to keep having urinary tract infections.
Mm-hmm. Oh, was this apartment that you were at cited for anything like that they had to fix all this?
Well, no, I eventually moved out, and I am in the process of trying to get an attorney. I was trying to get my daughter back first. So we both could actually file, but it doesn't seem like I don't know how that's going to work out with her as of now. But I do have plans on several entities I would like to seek justice for, not just the apartment complex that's involved in this attempted cover-up. A
Mhm.
lot of public servants, and I
Mm.
call it people in high places,
Right.
are protecting both of these state agencies. There's no check and balances is with this government agency. They're allowed to do as they're pleased. My state legislatures, they make these laws.
Mhm.
You're supposed to do something to make sure this state agency follow the law, because every time these children go into foster care, that's a check.
Mm-hmm.
People receive federal funding for this. And they're not talking to parents and different websites that I'm a part of, talking to so many different parents. They're telling me they're taking the treatment plans, doing what they're supposed to do, and DSS is still refusing to give them their children. They're acting like Homeland Security.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Or domestic terrorists.
Yes. And won't give you your children back. And just like me, why would I take a treatment plan when all I did was a good mom trying to get answers for me and my daughter's sickness, because we weren't sick before we moved into that crappy, crummy apartment. So
Mhm.
what kind of treatment plan would you give a mother that's trying to get well?
And who determines how many times you go to the doctor is too much. 15 times in a 2.5-year period. That's about 5 times a year.
Mhm.
That's
That-
for a kid, that's common. Every
right.
time you look up, they got ear infections or
Sore throat.
yes.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
that's
so.
common.
Mhm.
And I don't even know where she's at. I have no clue where my daughter is. Like I said, and when I would try to call up to the school in Georgia, they would not give me any information. They would tell me how many days she missed. She was been excessive missing days from school. She had started skipping school. Her life has spiraled out of control. Now, let me give you a little history on my daughter before she left. And I was a substitute school teacher in Georgia. I have a college degree from the Art Institute of Atlanta. I had my real estate license in the state of Georgia since the year 2000. I've been a pillar of the community. I've been involved in my church actively. I'm a community outreach educator for a healthcare plan. Um, I volunteer on Thanksgiving. I recently went to go serve the homeless at a men's shelter. So I'm always involved. I was always a teen mom of all my kids' sports programs. I was the room parent every time I could. My daughter was on the dance team when we moved to South Carolina. She was on the volleyball team when DSS took her. She was on the youth ministry at our church. She was involved in the Urban League. It's a youth program, keep
And on
youth.
track to graduate.
Yes, and I had her at a charter school, and that charter school, upon high school graduation, she would have obtained her an associate's degree. And she started school early in Atlanta because we lived in Atlanta. I stayed there 25 years. At the private school, she has a late birthday. So when I enrolled her in school, she was actually ahead of her peers. And they said she could stay in that grade as long as she was able to maintain her grades and stay on track. She was a very smart student, very smart, educated student. So she was really smart. So really, she's one grade ahead of where she should be. So when she would have graduated, if she went to college directly after high school graduation, she would have had a bachelor's degree at 19 years old, and she wanted to go to Clemson or Furman University, and they destroyed her dreams.
And that's just, I mean, so much damage. Her dreams, her career, the career that she would have had.
Correct.
Oh, and so when you moved from Georgia to South Carolina into this horrible apartment that you didn't know was horrible.
Exactly. And it's a government-based apartment. So, they don't take good care of those apartments. They don't change the air filters. And in the first apartment we lived in, it's in the transcript, the tiles, it's an older complex, and the tiles, the old square tiles are up there, and they started falling off. And when they started falling off, I could see like a black paper bag behind there. And eventually, I didn't know the seriousness of mold back then. I really didn't. I didn't know mold could really kill you. You just
Right.
heard
Well,
your
we didn't either.
grandparents
I
talk
mean,
about it.
right. I mean, a lot of people did not know.
I did not know that. So when they came in, they realized it was mold. So that what they did, they moved me and my daughter from the first unit up to the front close. And that's when things really got out of hand.
Oh,
And when they moved us in there, that's when our bodies just couldn't take it anymore. And the sad part about it's in the transcript. When I moved out of that first unit, a young mother and her 2 kids moved in there. She had a newborn, and she had a child who was in the same grade as my daughter. My daughter was in the 8th grade when DSS kidnapped her. I'm not kidding you. Within a few months after that young lady and that newborn and that 13-year-old girl moved in that apartment, the baby died. The baby died in that apartment. And one of my neighbors, who I look at like a mother, and my daughter called grandmother, her grandmother, who we became really close with, she told Judge Rochelle Connors that at my trial, and told her that baby died in that apartment. And we believe it was because of, and it could have been, it's no telling, I mean, it could have been some airborne in there as well, on top of that mold. But that baby died. I don't think that was a coincidence.
Did DSS get involved with her at all, or probably not?
Well, no, because I don't think they really knew that that young lady had baby had died, but we did tell DSS that that baby died. One of my witnesses did told the court that that baby died in that unit. So they had enough evidence to know that I had not hurt or harmed my child, but they did so much wrong and broke so many laws and committed so many crimes against us. They had to just keep going with it, trying to cover up and cover. And then DSS recommended at trial, went against her guardian ad litem, who's supposed to have the best interest of children, went against them and recommended to the court, was the main attorney, Richard Allen. He is the most corrupt attorney I've ever seen over there. Recommended that my daughter still be placed with her father after her guardian ad litem told the court, no, take this child from her father.
Oh.
And they closed the case, Maryann. So that means my daughter is stuck in Georgia and she doesn't have either state agency monitoring what happens with her. So her father would tell her to tell the school and police authorities when I would call in Georgia DSS that those women, those strange families he had her living with, that those were her godmother. It was her godmother and they were her family. I don't even know these strange women and family members. And one night, upon me, now this is a weird thing. Judge Rochelle Connors gave me visitation, weekend visitation with my daughter, but I'm supposed to be a child abuser. If I harm this child, why would I have unsupervised visitation?
Unsupervised visitation.
That makes no sense.
Oh,
Unsupervised, but I supposedly physically harmed or hurt her.
Whole weekend.
Yeah, the whole weekend. I can get her free. But it's only in Georgia now. Only in Georgia. They won't let her come back to South Carolina. But Georgia said South Carolina don't have no jurisdiction in their state. Only in South Carolina can South Carolina tell me what to do. But when I'm in Georgia, I got to follow Georgia laws.
that does not make any sense either.
It does not.
And Georgia wasn't involved in the case.
Yeah, Georgia, and they never got Georgia's DSS involved because they should have gotten Georgia, I think they call it, I forgot what they call it in Georgia, DFCS maybe. They were supposed to have gotten them involved and they would have monitored the placement and my daughter would have never been neglected and abused by her father. But South Carolina did not even get approval from the state of Georgia. They just placed her in Georgia like they always do. They never follow laws. And now she's just out there to the wolves. I don't even talk to her. I don't even know where she's at. I just recently did,
Tell about the weekend that you had her.
and the lady put her out.
Yeah.
Okay, I was going to go there now. My aunt, because I tell you, one weekend when I did have visitation, I dropped my daughter off. Now they would not, her father told her, don't tell me where she resides at. He was letting my daughter catch a Uber in metropolitan Atlanta by herself. And Atlanta is not one of the safest places because I lived there 25 years. So a little 15-year-old child taking Uber to meet me for visitation because he did not want me to know where he kept my daughter.
Boy, he's a wimp.
Yes, he is. He really is. He's of Haitian descendant, so and he hasn't been here. Well, he got here when he was a teenager, so he does things a lot differently than I do. I follow the law. He doesn't. And I dropped off at visitation, and I was on my way back to South Carolina. I got back around 10 o'clock p.m. I'm not kidding you. I was 2 exits away from getting off of my exit from home. My daughter called me. She wouldn't give me the address to the, because she does what her father tells her to do. She doesn't have anyone to protect her. Her entire base and her family support is in Greenville, South Carolina. She's in Georgia with a man, little 13-year-old girl, trying to find out about her body as a teenager growing up by herself and no mom to talk to. So as soon as I get ready to get off my exit, about 2 exits before, my daughter called me hysterically crying and screaming, talking about she couldn't take it anymore and asked me to come get her. Now, this is how I knew she was serious because she gave me the address that time. I pulled off the exit. I used the restroom, filled my gas tank up, and told her mommy is on the way. Turned the car around, just dropped her off, 2.5-hour drive, go back, my baby standing outside with her purse and her overnight bag that I had just dropped her off with at night. And I picked her up and told her, call your mammy and tell your mammy to come get you. So I went and got her and I brought her back and she had to stay in Greenville, South Carolina with me for a whole week, didn't do no homework, didn't have any clothes with her. I had to go buy her some clothes. And just missed the whole week and stayed a whole week with me while her father was in New York on a job. And he eventually, I tried to file papers, emergency hearing papers to get her, but the attorneys I called was like, we don't have enough time to do that in the length of time that you need. I tried to do it myself. When I went down there, they said it was wrong, but I heard that they're supposed to try to help you when you go down there at those windows or give you some documents to tell you how to file yourself. So he came and got her before I could get the papers filed in time. And he took her back to that same lady and forced her to stay with these, and she has young boys, sons that was staying in the house that I didn't like. So I think about, she's stayed about with 3 or 4 different families that I don't know of, that the courts have not approved. South Carolina has gone down to her school and the case has been closed. You don't have any rights to be talking to my child. And every time I call Georgia DSS, they don't do anything. And I'm sure it has a lot to do with South Carolina trying to tell them that I got mental health issues. And Judge Rochelle Connors, her name is on that court order saying that I have mental health issues. But in order for you to deem someone mentally ill, you got to have them evaluated. There was never evaluation done. So how can you deem me as being mentally ill? And my guardian ad litem's told Judge Rochelle Connors at my trial that I was competent, I was smart, and I was educated, and so did my attorney. And they went back and forth, and she released him as my guardian ad litem and asked me to stand up, introduce myself, and give her some of my, ask for my background history, and said on transcript, she sounds educated, she sounds smart and intelligent, and I'm gonna release you as her guardian ad litem. But when I get my final court order, why is this, does it say that they want another, want a mental health evaluation? I question all those signatures on the judge's signatures. Some of them got 5 and 6 different signatures.
So then what you're telling me is Judge Rochelle Connor is practicing medicine without a license.
Yes, CONITS is how you spell her last name. And she's up for re-election. I'm sorry.
Is it 1 N or 2?
CONITS. Connits.
Okay. Well, she's practicing without a medical license. I mean, you just can't label people. And
exactly.
This is why family court needs to be abolished, because you've got these people that aren't even thinking straight themselves.
Well, they need a jury. More people than one to make a decision, because I mean, sometimes I read an article that DSS pays family court, clerk of the court, monies, and they don't have to be held accountable for it. They just have to verbally say what they're gonna do with it. So eventually, when I started going on social media, blasting the clerk of the court, because I knew they stole my emails out they were stealing documents out my file folder at the courthouse. So when I found out what they were doing, I went on social media talking and blasting the clerk of the court, and he retired that year or the following year. Because I found that it's illegal. It is a federal law to go inside any United States courthouse and start removing documents. You cannot take documents out or place them in there unless they've been filed with the clerk of the court. So they were stealing documents out my folder. And I didn't get to see my daughter for 8 months, Maryann. And I paid my public defender monies out my pocket to file a rule to show cause back in August. She didn't file that until January. And the courts told me that they said she didn't file it. And they tried to throw it out, but then they tried to give me another court-appointed attorney, which is really weird. And he said that it was never filed, but then I got a copy of it showing it was filed with Georgia, and I called Georgia and they said it was filed. So they didn't want to arrest him for contempt of court for failing to bring her to visitation, because they knew that would really make them look bad. How are you going to arrest the person that you placed her with that's a 2-time convicted felon that's on probation, that got a probation violation? It's a mess. So they just chose to let her stay with him versus bringing him in, getting him arrested. Because how would that look? You just place her with him, but then you're going to turn around and arrest him?
Then that would give him another probation violation.
And he would have went to jail.
Right. That's where he
should have. Yeah, he should have went to jail.
Yeah.
So I have no idea what his child is. This is a travesty of justice, a miscarriage as well. And they're all
It-
covering it up.
It's also child trafficking is what these judges have participated in,
Exactly.
as well as the other fellow that Dr. Who
John
wrote,
Manville.
yes. Yeah, he you got a lot of participators in kidnapping and child abuse and child trafficking.
Forgery,
Yeah, forgery.
perjury.
Mm-hmm.
This is a lot. And another thing, when you think about it, these judges' signatures are questionable. When you look at them, some are rubber stamps. If you look at my YouTube channel that I have, I actually video the transcript against the court orders, and you can see the discrepancies and that these judges are lying
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
or they're facing, I call it incompetent, or it's just, if not, then it's just liars, just
Right.
straight liars and criminals.
Well, because they're getting these federal incentives and they're getting these kickbacks that also go into their judges' pension funds.
Exactly. Or for reelection, they get donations
Right.
and they get those seats back. So I've had time to do a lot of research, and that's why I'm going to say, if you stay in the state of South Carolina, you need to go to the General Assembly website and get that book. That's your Bible. South Carolina Section Code Laws for Children. That's the only way you're going to know that people are not following the laws of the state. That's the only way you're going to know, because some of those attorneys work with these judges.
Right. Right.
And they're getting compensated, and it's a racketeering operation. That attorney that I hired for my trial, Maryann, I'll never forget when I went up there to meet with him, and I cried like a baby. And I never forget, that man told me this happens more often than you think of people of color. He admitted that, and when I walked out that door, it was a Hispanic family in the parking lot waiting to see him next. When I walked out that door, I never forget, that man said, he thought it was kind of hilarious. He was like, "Come on in, next victims."
Oh, no
So that
way.
tells me this is what they do to keep receiving compensation, and it's a racketeering operation, and it's a vicious cycle. These people are in it for the money. This is how this court system keep running.
They're not
Right.
trying to
Help.
do any justice for anybody.
No. This case is I'm so sorry.
And I cannot seem to find one honest attorney in the state of South Carolina that I can trust, that I feel like would truly represent me and go in there and fight Department of Social Service. I've called so many, sometimes they would say, "They're so powerful. This is what they do." I'm like, you took an oath to stand up and fight for your clients. You took an oath. This is your job. This is what you're supposed to do when you go in any courtroom, fight for your clients. A lot of crooked people is in this state.
Right. Have you, I don't know if you've done this or not, but filed an Amber Alert on your daughter? Or
No,
can
I
you?
don't even know I don't even know where to start, Maryann. When I tell you, because like I said, I even called the sheriff's department in Gwinnett County when he choked her and tried to take a warrant off of his arrest. That just, it stopped. And I really believe him. I truly believe the state of South Carolina, even the director, it's so many people involved in this, that they're taking great, whatever they can do to try to prevent this or to stop this, so they won't get handcuffed. And I do believe that they're contacting Georgia, DSS, and at great lengths in the school system, trying to get them to stop and try to make it appear as if I have mental health issues, because they don't want to go to jail. This is federal laws right here that they're breaking.
Right. And, like you said earlier, the lower court judges are also connected to the Supreme Court where you were at.
Yes, the Supreme Court knows about this and did absolutely nothing. So how do you seek justice in a corrupt Supreme Court system?
That's what a lot of us are asking, is where is the justice while these kids are missing? Where did they go? And
Exactly.
for this judge, to put her with a felon, this judge, I don't know, I mean, I don't know if I'd even trust her flipping burgers, but she needs to find another job.
She does. She needs to be arrested. The
Right.
judges can be arrested. And she falsified those court orders, and she falsified the untruthful things in the transcript.
Mm-hmm.
Their transcripts are missing. And they closed the case. They intentionally closed this case. And now I'm a law-abiding citizen. I have a good job. I'm a real estate agent. And she put my name in that database saying I'm a child abuser. And I have not put a hand on this child. I've done nothing but tried to get answers for our sickness. And we got the answers. And Judge Rochelle Connors was presented with that lab report from LabCorp showing that that mold was found growing in my mouth, my sputum, and she knew about it. And when I took the witness stand, I talked about the corroded water pipes and the lead being in the water. And she still found, but the judge, Dr. John Mainville, when we went to trial, he didn't even say it was physical abuse. At first, they said physical abuse and medical neglect is what they put in all the documents. Eventually, he changed his mind and said it was medical neglect. How am I neglecting her if you're saying I'm taking her to the doctors too often? But Judge Connors found me guilty of physical abuse. I think that was just her trying to retaliate against me. That was her way of retaliating against me. And then she put in there that even if I take the treatment plan, I'm still not guaranteed I can get custody of my daughter.
Right. Even if you did that whole treatment plan, they make these parents jump through hoops and then they still don't give them the kids back.
That's right.
That's awful. That's abduction.
Mm-hmm.
And all of this should never have taken
happened.
place.
Right.
After December the 11th, it was a dead. It should have been closed and they should have had a case finding, but they didn't think that I was as smart as that I was going to do my investigation and find out the laws of the state. And that's when I realized I was wronged and my daughter had been victimized because that judge, Tarita Dunbar, she recused herself from my case. The one that signed that order to take her from my custody and place her in DSS custody. When I went to that hearing for my then attorney, Vanessa Cason, that was my public defender, who told me to cooperate with DSS, who works with DSS. At that hearing, I think it was February 7th, someone on DSS side stood up and said, Judge, Tarita Dunbar recused herself. Judges rarely recuse themselves from cases. It got to be something really serious going on. She didn't want to be connected with those fraudulent documents because she knew it wasn't a transcript. How you gonna take a child and you don't even go on record saying what kind of evidence was presented and who the witnesses were?
Yeah. Oh, very, just nothing surprises me anymore with all, these parents coming to me and telling me what has happened with their cases and their children. Mother, like moms being accused of Munchausen by proxy. And, I've got one good dad up in New York and his ex, she is living with a 4-count felon and the judge still gave her custody when the child he was, I think 4 at the time, should have been placed with a father.
That's terrible. They don't care about these
They
children.
don't care about these kids. They don't. Okay, so let me ask you this out of curiosity. Does Judge Rochelle Connors have kids of her own?
She does. And I think her daughter, when I did some research, her daughter was close to my daughter's age.
What about Judge Tiffany?
I'm not really sure, but I know Judge Tarita Dunbar. She's been in the news and on the internet. She wasn't even supposed to have her seat. It's big. She was involved in a big scandal about vote swapping with the SLED was trying to investigate her and Judge Catherine Tiffany about some vote swapping and with state legislators. It's a lot. When you start researching these judges, all kind of stuff start popping up about some of them getting sued.
Ah,
This
yeah.
is you never realize how corrupt a judicial system is until it happens to you or someone you know, or until you start doing research. Because I'm holding South Carolina Supreme Court accountable for this because they had information and evidence that
Mhm.
my child was being neglected and hurt or harmed, and they didn't even give a crap about her and let her stay out there to the wolves in the state of Georgia and could care less about my daughter protecting their corrupt, crooked, dirty judges, and could care less if my daughter lived or died because her life is in danger.
Now, let me ask you this. Eh, Would you say racism could also come into play with that?
Yeah, of course. I would think a little bit of it, yes, because all three of those DSS managing attorney Sam Weldon, Casey Shaw, and Haley Rogers, all three of them are Caucasian. I do believe it initiated with them. And when you think about it, the director is Caucasian. The Richard Allen, he's a attorney up there. He is kind of threatened me, telling me I don't erase no emails, don't erase no voicemails,
Mhm.
don't erase no text messages, and that I needed to turn that over to him.
Mm,
I don't meet the demands of criminals. I don't care who you are.
right.
I don't meet the demands of criminals because that's what they are. And just using dirty
Who is
tactics
that
like,
saying you shouldn't be going on social media?
oh, that was somebody on one of my YouTube
And the judge say it was okay.
oh, that was the DSS attorney Richard Allen, the one I'm talking about that acts like Homeland Security, did not want, when we went to trial, he did not want my family and friends to come inside the courtroom. Okay, that's the second time they refused to let my support system come inside that courtroom. So upon the start of trial, Attorney Richard Allen did not want my family friends to come in and said due to the social media attention that I was attracting, that if my family friends came in there, you know, pretty much that he wanted to put a gag order on them. I wasn't going for that. You don't
No,
want people to know the truth about your criminal acts.
and it's unconstitutional.
Yeah, that's exactly what he did. And Judge Rochelle Connors asked him, well, isn't she didn't even know the law. She was asking Richard Allen, Attorney Richard Allen, the laws, and whatever he said, she went with it. I seem to know the laws better than they do because I've had 3 years to read them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they can't even think for themselves. And they've got other judges telling these judges what to do as
Correct.
well.
Now, if DSS had placed my daughter with my Aunt Carolyn right here,
Mhm.
I would have been fine. Because I know they got to do their job. I didn't have a problem with them doing an investigation, but they did not. They refused to place her with my aunt because my aunt didn't agree with them, and she felt like what they did was unconstitutional to go up to a person's school and not notify the parent that you're. I didn't even know I was under investigation. When I
Mhm.
met with Haley Rogers on November the 3rd, she just told me that someone had called to say I said that my daughter was having parasites. If that lady had told me I was under investigation for abuse and neglect, I would have called an attorney right then and there. But she never told me that. So they should have placed my daughter with my aunt where she could be close to her family, where she will have a support system. They just snatched this child's life from her, snatched her out of school, snatched her from her friends. It was just me and my daughter, just us two. And they just snatched my daughter away from me and me away from her. And wouldn't let me see her for 8 months. And when I kept trying to get my public defender, Vanessa Kaysen, to file the document, she kept giving me excuse after excuse after excuse. She has no idea the hurt and harm that was inflicted upon me and my daughter by not being able to see each other after we had been with each other for 13 years. And her dad, I had just put him up for child support. So that's one reason why he don't want to give her back, because he didn't want to pay child support. And Judge Catherine Tiffany ended the support. I was the same month I was supposed to start getting support from him to help me. She terminated the child support. And then, you know, DSS told me last year that they had in their files that he was deceased, that her father was deceased. I said, that is not true. Where did you get that information from?
Well, if he's deceased, where is Nadia?
He was living. He was alive when the DSS told me that.
But had he been,
Then the child should be returned to you.
exactly, where is Nadia?
Well, I'm just saying they lied. That was another lie they put inside the folders by saying he was deceased. I'm telling you, they don't went to great lengths to try to cover this up.
Oh, there's a big cover up here. Seems to be that there's a lot of cover-ups going on in South Carolina.
It's horrible.
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
is.
what about the children?
And they don't care that they're being trafficked and given to felons and God knows what else.
And it's awful that so many people are going along with just whatever they want to do. No consideration for justice and doing the right thing. And this should never have happened. They came out and visited me, and I showed them the room that she would have in my home. And basically, it would just have been she and myself living there. And as Clarissa said, I've had 2 other children that I had clearance for to be to keep. So it was no reason other than the only reason that they gave was that I agreed with Clarissa. And they didn't think that she should be placed with me because I agreed with her. Now, is that foolishness or is that foolishness? I mean, if I had agreed with them and they wrong as 2 left shoes, would they have placed her with me? Had I known, I guess I would have gone along with them if that was going to get her to be with me.
But who knows? You could have agreed with them and then they would have found some other avenue anyway. So don't beat yourself up. You just don't know what they would have done.
They can't be trusted.
No.
No, because on the 46th day, they became criminals because they were breaking the law. Every bit of this.
And the Supreme Court don't even seem to care, because I put that in my writ of cert that on that ex parte court order that was issued, it was illegal. It was illegal. It became null and void the day that Judge Sharita Dunbar signed it and unenforceable. They didn't even want to go back and vacate it or reverse it. If it's wrong and you know it's wrong and it should never been issued, correct your mistake and make this thing right.
Absolutely.
And return my daughter.
Throw it out.
Compensate me and my daughter and make sure she gets the mental health treatment that she needs, and myself, you know, just from the amount of stress, you know, sometimes it's
exactly.
And making sure my daughter goes back to college and get her life straight. Now they need to fix this.
Yeah, and you can't hold these people accountable, so I don't even know how that would even happen. If they're just running amok, destroying families and children's childhoods and career and future careers. They don't care because of the money. Kids for cash.
That's exactly what it is. Cash for kids.
Yep. Now, is there anything else you'd like to add?
I think I did talk about my YouTube channel, Clarissa Speaks the Truth. And if you want to send me yes, if you would like to send me an email, you can send to my email address. I have 2 of them. The first one is called Parents Have Rights, SC DSS, as in South Carolina DSS. Once again, Parents Have Rights, SCDSS at gmail.com. You can go to my Facebook page. It's Clarissa Williams. It has Atlanta, Georgia beside it. I have on all black. And I have a lot of public posts. Everything I post, I made it public because I want the word to get out. And eventually, I'm sure eventually with time, it's going to take some time, because I think I'm the first person who stepped forward and who's going public and who's not going to back down. And who's going to
got to lose.
Yeah, exactly. And who's going to keep pushing forward and trying to help fight for these children and these families. So I'm not going anywhere, DSS. I'm not going anywhere, family court. I'm here to stay and I'm here to fight you. And I'm here to expose you. And I'm here, if I can, prosecute to the fullest extent of the law, because you're kidnapping children and you're destroying families and you're corrupt, dirty, crooked judges sitting on those benches. And I can't totally say that my state legislatures know about it, but they need to be informed of this. And Governor Henry McMaster, he needs to be informed of what's been taking place, because he appoints the director of DSS, and they've had a lot of turmoil and problems over there at DSS. So you need to know, Henry McMaster, and I have said this before, who you're hiring is going to be fair, follow the law, and protect these children and these families, and try to reunify. Just because you make one mistake does not mean you're a horrible parent. For those parents who have done something wrong, if they can correct those mistakes, everybody deserves a second chance, even prisoners. You need to help these families fix what needs to be fixed so they can get their children back, so you can stop getting checks.
Well, exactly. And that's what they were set up to do, is to help families. And then they just got corrupt.
That's exactly what it is. By state legislatures, they need to do something, because they make these laws, and they say, why are you gonna make a law and we pay our tax dollars for you to go down there and vote, and then when they don't follow the law, you don't do anything about it. That's a problem.
I'm so glad you came on Slam the Gavel podcast and spoke out.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, most definitely. Don't jump off, okay? Slam the Gavel is a podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in these courtrooms. I am your host, Maryann Petri. You can find me on Spotify, YouTube. Please like and subscribe. Apple iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google, and other platforms I don't know about. Again, feel free to buy me a coffee to help keep this podcast going. And I thank you, Clarissa Williams and Aunt Carolyn, for coming on and explaining your case and exposing these bad actors. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you
for
for
having
having
us.
us.